conversation series. Here now, our next guest, her name is Joa McNalie. She is an author, an activist, an all-around amazing woman. She has wrote 2 books in the last 2 years, right? The Hero in the Helmet, and then what's the name of your second book?
B is for Brotherhood.
B is for Brotherhood. So this is Joa. Joa, introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them a little about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So my name is Joa McNalie, as Alicia said. I'm a children's author, social justice advocate. I do think of myself as an activist.
Yes.
And in the last, it's to be exact, a year and 3 months, I've had 2 books, The Hero in the Helmet, Colin Kaepernick, and B is for Brotherhood.
Right.
And now there is also a national curriculum available to assist those readings.
Yes. So if you don't understand what that means her book she has now turned into a curriculum for school. It's for 3rd and 4th graders, right? And now you can advocate or talk to your local board of education, your teachers, to get this implemented in your children's classroom. So a little background story, if you are familiar with football, the NFL, what's been going on over the recent years. Colin Kaepernick decided to take a kneel and stand up for injustice and police brutality. And in doing so, he ended up losing his football contract and kind of been blackballed out of the NFL.
Yeah.
So she wrote this book, which I love. The backstory is how you said you wanted to highlight heroes while they're alive, which was so true because so many people, they don't get the recognition that they deserve until after they pass away or till they're way older and not in their actual prime while they're doing it. So tell everybody, kind of why you chose to highlight this story.
So that's exactly right. Colin Kaepernick first kneeled in 2016.
Okay.
He was actually sitting on the sidelines before he was kneeling. And the story goes that he met with a military veteran who, Nate Boyer his name is, who met with him privately and wanted to know his take on it. As a military veteran, he felt that sitting down during the singing of the national anthem was a little bit disrespectful to military vets who fight for us to keep us free. So when they had that conversation, Nate Boyer actually suggested to Colin Kaepernick, hey, I like what you're doing, but maybe you should kneel instead of sit, because kneeling is more of a respectful gesture.
Right.
If you think about it, we kneel when we pray. Right. We kneel when we propose. We kneel when in the presence of kings. We prostrate in the presence of kings.
Right.
So as an athlete, I've played basketball. I played at the collegiate level. When a teammate gets hurt, we kneel to show a sign of respect. So symbolically, Colin Kaepernick was saying, I'm injured by the way that our country treats black and brown citizens.
Right.
I'm injured. So he took a knee to protest police brutality and racial injustice. Well, in 2018, my book came out because I came home one day. The backstory about that is I was working as a behavioral therapist and substance abuse counselor. I've always wanted to do psychology. I knew since I was 9 years old. So I went to school, got my master's degree, and I was really doing what I love.
Right.
So I came home one day from work, and on TV they were talking about the special with Colin Kaepernick, and I just thought that this is so ridiculous. There's people are just going crazy about this guy taking a knee when we know in the NFL there's way more offensive things that happen, right?
Right.
Well, this is not offensive at all. Kneeling is not offensive at all. But we know there's substance abuse going on. There's domestic abuse, gun charges, all kinds of crazy things. And here, this guy peacefully took a knee without hurting anyone himself or anyone, and everyone was just up in arms about it. So I thought to myself, you know what? Someone should write a book about this and explain what's going on in the simplest way possible.
Right.
And then it just kind of hit me.
Right.
What's more simplistic than a children's book? And then is exactly what you said. I noticed that the pattern is when it comes to black and brown heroes anyway, or civil rights activists, they don't get the recognition that they deserve until, like you said, they pass on. And then we want to commemorate them with a day. Martin Luther King Jr. right now, we celebrate him as a hero and we call him this great American now. But Martin Luther King was very hated when he was actually doing the work, right? It just started to play in my mind that we need to change the way that Black history is being taught in educational systems.
Right.
One, our history does not fit into 28 days of February.
Right.
I find that offensive.
Very.
And then on top of it, like, there are a lot of Black American heroes that I don't know anything about because I wasn't taught it as a child. So it's now in my adult years, I'm having to learn that history now, learning their contributions now. So my thought on that was, if we can control the narrative and we can get it while children are early in their developmental phase, they'll grow up knowing who these people are, and also it validates their own existence because representation matters. So they need to be seeing themselves represented in books, in video games, in whatever they're getting themselves in. They need to see themselves represented on all platforms, and not only just represented, but as a protagonist in a story, as the main character in a story. So that was my whole.
I don't even think that you know this, but when I first met you last year, and you and I discovered your book, and I interviewed you, like, I am a huge NFL fan. Like, I've always watched football, but once you came on and you kind of explained your side and you gave more in-depth details, I haven't watched football since then.
Oh, wow.
So I've been protesting.
Wow, that's awesome.
No, honestly, and now so a lot of people are like, oh, well, this has absolutely nothing to do with football, and he's using the wrong platform. But for me, I felt like it was just really a blatant disrespect, kind of on the NFL's behalf, because they never took a stance as far as, well, we think that what is going on is wrong. They just kind of were like, well, we don't care. That don't have nothing to do with us. Get that off of our screen. They're kind of like, shut up and dribble LeBron James thing. Shut up and play football type of. Basically.
And that's also in my books, too. I've had to highlight that.
So I don't think that you even know that. And
wow, you never told me that before.
Yes, like, even my whole household, we're anti-football right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, so I really just commend you for this platform and for talking about this story, and like you said, and allowing people to show that there's another voice. Because what I seen the pattern, like, even with recent, like, this is very, current right now going on with the whole Jay-Z initiative with the football. And, like, what's your take on that, actually? I would like to hear your side of that.
So I'm going to get right into the Jay-Z thing, but I want to address something that you just said, too, because I think it's important. You said that some people saying, that they don't feel like that it was the right platform for Colin Kaepernick to use to protest. Well, to understand that, I mean, football is America's sport, right? It's so big. So where you have police brutality, which is also a prevalent issue going on in the country. So Colin Kaepernick, you gotta really think about this, because here's someone who is enjoying the comforts and luxuries of something he worked extremely, extremely hard for. And actually, I tell people that Colin Kaepernick's best sport was actually baseball and not football. He had gotten a contract to play baseball. He turned it down to pursue football. So his love was actually for football. So in knowing that, and then him actually getting to that place where his dream is recognized, and to still jeopardize it by speed, that's a big deal. And also, when we talk about allyship, and we talk about white privilege, and then white people who speak up against racism, they do that by using their platform, which means that because they have a certain privilege, or they're more heard, they speak out when they should. So Colin Kaepernick, using his platform as someone with a lot of influence, that's the perfect place to do it, because that's where his influence comes from. So him doing that, and then not being even related to the people that it's happened to, the victims of police. Like, these are not his family members. These are not people his friends or things like that. That's just humanity. Like, that's him showing his humanity.
The fact he risked his whole entire football career, contract money, and then after was still advocating and going
and
out.
Still is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And going out and doing other things. On top of this, he does things like go, to other countries, gives out suits. He did the drive where he was giving out suits and, shoes to men coming out of jail and things of that thing.
He's a huge supporter of Girls Club. I mean, he does so much things.
Yeah, he does a lot of different things. So I just think that was commendable. commendable in itself because there aren't a lot of people. A lot of people stay quiet to this topic because of that thing. Well, people were saying, oh, you know, they got families to feed and different things. But like you said, where is the humanity level? Like, when do you cut that off?
Absolutely.
Because if it was your child,
you'd want someone out there,
you that's going through that, because families are going through this every day, where there's police brutality, they're being harassed, and you know, a lot of people just don't have the voice, or they don't have the resources, like you said,
or the courage even,
to
step out and do it.
Right. So now shifting back to this whole new NFL Jay-Z initiative thing, I'm personally still not supporting, but my take on it is more so I want to see action and show and prove, because it's easy and everything is a publicity stunt. So it's easy to get on TV and say like, oh, look what we're doing, wave the flag in front of people's face, and a lot of people have now said, oh, wow, they got Jay-Z, but I'm not a fan of the token, you know, being the token face of any organization without showing the efforts that go behind it. So that's just my take, but I would love to hear your perspective.
So it's important for me to say that, one, with or without Jay-Z, I am not a fan of the NFL. As long as Colin Kaepernick is not playing in the NFL and being blackballed for kneeling, I will not be watching the NFL. I don't care who I've said this before. I don't care if Jay-Z brings back Michael Jackson, Prince, and Whitney Houston to sing the national anthem. I will not be watching it, because an unfairness was done, right? An injustice was done. A man has lost his job for doing the right thing. That has to be addressed, and that's going to be forever stain on the NFL if it's not addressed. So, speaking to the Jay-Z and his initiative to work with them now, I've said this. I've heard both sides of it. You know, I'm pro Colin Kaepernick, so that, you know, there's
it's no convincing
me about that. But I will say that I think that none of us on either side, Colin Kaepernick's side or Jay-Z's side, have enough information to make a determination about what this really is.
Right.
And while I agree with you, I'm not a fan of being a token, you know, black child, or, you know, parading Jay-Z around for his whatever, for his clout or whatever. I need to see action, like you said too. So I think the problem with Jay-Z doing this deal with the NFL really comes from how it was done. I think that the offense was that Jay-Z didn't bring Colin Kaepernick in, and so now that becomes a question. Should anyone that's doing any social justice efforts run through Colin Kaepernick, right? So I don't necessarily think so. I think that it would have been courteous for Jay-Z to have brought Colin Kaepernick on, especially because he showed his support to him before,
prior,
and spoke out, you know, to in support of him. So now it becomes a little suspicious then, like, okay, well, you know you're gonna have a conversation with the NFL. Why wasn't I brought into it? But I still don't think that also means that Jay-Z is trying to...
Well, I think that Jay-Z's influence, and definitely with his social justice efforts over the last few years especially, I have big faith in him. I think that he can probably do something really amazing with this platform. And I just feel kind of, like I said, it's kind of more of, you have to sit back and watch and see. And since we don't all know what details and what things are to come about, it can be taken, and what I think was offensive about it was more of, like I said, it came out more like a publicity stunt. I think that when you're dealing with sensitive topics like this, you know, you should consider other people's feelings. You should consider the fans and the audience, and there should have been some type of a press type of conference or something that eased this onto people, not just you wake up one day and it's on the blogs.
See this conversation.
Because now it's kind of like, wait,
it's suspicious.
What? Like, what's going on here? Where did this just come from? And it just happens to be right in time before the kickoff of the new season.
Yeah, it's suspicious. I'm not even going to try to take away from it. And what I say to people is that I'm willing to give Jay-Z the benefit of the doubt for one reason and one reason only. Not because of his influence, not because of his music, not because of anything. The reason why I'm giving Jay-Z the benefit of the doubt is because it would be so irresponsible of him in that, you know, in where he is right now, with all that he has, with how much he's in the media, how much he's respected, how much influence he has. It would be so irresponsible of him to take that platform and basically spit in our faces.
And I don't think that he will.
I just don't I mean, it would be hard for me to it's hard for me to believe that he would do all of that
Right.
So I'm willing to give him the
because he doesn't need the money.
He doesn't need the money.
He doesn't need the influence.
So what is it that you want to do? And so if you go into the NFL and you make that wrong move, that doesn't just affect you. That brings us as black people back. And that's irresponsible. So and Jay-Z's a very smart man.
Right.
So I know that he's had to, or I'm assuming anyway, that he's thought about these things and understands how his actions will.
And he's a very pro-black, person as far as his platform and the things that he talks about. And I think that of a lot of the, recent rappers or artists who have come from, the last 20 years, he's definitely transitioned and shifted that and put that into perspective as far as his music goes, as far as his audience and trying to be, that platform or that go-to person. So
absolutely. But I will say though that he misspoke a couple of times during the clips that I saw anyway. The probably my least favorite thing is the actionable items thing.
Yes.
Right? Kneeling is actually an actionable item.
Right.
And then also Colin Kaepernick he started off kneeling, and then also Colin Kaepernick kneeled during a very significant time during the singing of the national anthem, which that song is a very racist song. People don't know about the third stanza,
right?
But that is a racist song. So him choosing to do that during the singing of the national anthem is very strategic,
right?
And then he didn't stop there. He built his own organization, Know Your Rights Camp, like we were just talking about. Which he travels countrywide, statewide. He gives free materials. He gives lets children know about their DNA, connects them to their ancestry.
Right.
He gives. I mean, it's endless. So for him to say we're past kneeling, I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not sure what Jay-Z's trying to say.
I've seen a lot of backlash about that comment, and I've seen a lot of different perspectives online, a lot of different interviews and takes, and some people kind of said that in a sense. Well, Colin signed the deal. He signed the deal privately with NFL, non-disclosed. We don't really know what the details were. Him and Eric Reed. And now they're like, well, when he signed the paper, he kind of signed himself away or out of.
And these people don't understand the legalities then of what's going on, because unless for you to be able to sue the NFL, you have to do a collusion,
right? A non-disclosure type of suit. So
I mean. And so the problem is not with Colin Kaepernick signing to get his money, because money was due to him. He's not been able to play because you blackballed him out of him. I hope he gets some money for the rest of his life.
Right.
The problem is with we don't have enough firepower to move past the injustice and bring these owners to responsibility, because there's nothing else after the collusion statement for him to do.
Right.
So if there was, I'm sure he'd be doing it.
Right. So, and shifting back a little bit to the book, I want to talk about, I see that you travel all over. Yeah. You've been to so many different schools now, and you go out to forums and you read. What has been the response with the children? Like, what have children said to you about the book or parents? Just kind of tell us a little bit about those experiences.
Great question. I have been very blessed to just move around. I'm from state to state, countrywide to do these things. It always blows my mind just to know how much children actually know, right? Because we as adults, we always seem to think that children don't know.
Right, or they're oblivious.
They're oblivious, or that they're too immature to learn. And when I tell you, when I start reading these books and stuff, they bring up Emmett Till, they bring up Khalif Browder. They bring up the whole gamut. Like, they know so much. And I've had this little white boy, I'll never forget. He came up to me, and he'd never been exposed, I guess, to this kind of reading. Okay. So my books are very different in the fact that I think that there's a place for imagination and fairy tales, which a lot of children's books seems to be.
Right.
But I think there has to be a space where we're talking about realities and things that are actually affecting people. Tamir Rice was 12 years old when he was gunned down.
Right.
Right? So we can't leave children out of the conversation anymore.
Right, because it can happen to them.
At any time. And he was just so intrigued. Like, he wanted to know everything. He wanted to know who this person was. I mean, he wanted to know everything. And he went home and he told his mom, like, this is his favorite book. Aww. I've had parents who write me and told me that they've had such a hard time getting their children to read. But now this book, like, they don't have to force them. Like, they are really interested in reading. They pick it up all the time.
It's current.
Yeah.
And it is very simple to understand. And I think the connections that you make throughout the book as far as police brutality and injustices and the current times, like this, like you said, the very prevalent things that are going on, is anybody can understand.
Yeah.
And for some adults, I think they need to see it this simplified.
Absolutely.
Because when you start having conversation, you throw around certain words, it makes people uncomfortable. The conversation is very uncomfortable for many adults.
Yeah.
And you would think that for people of color that this conversation wouldn't be uncomfortable, but them themselves are very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk to their children about it. Like, my children are small, they're toddlers still, but even certain things I've already now started to introduce them to and talk about things, because they need to know, they need to be aware. And then I think as us as Black women, it's not always looked at like it affects us, but it does. And if it's affecting my brother, my son, my uncle, my father, that's me. It affects me. That's my community. That's my family. That's my foundation. So I think it's very important that us also, that we continue to speak about it and we continue to take a stance. And I think that we get into places that the men necessarily don't always get into.
Yeah.
So that's why I make it my business to utilize my platform to discuss things like this and to have guests like you. And, you know, for somebody who may be watching a child, a grown man, or whoever, or somebody who may not see the stance that we see, that the importance of it. Because I think that some people will feel like probably you're a little radical.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up too, because I think a lot of times we want to shield children from information or truth or something like that. And I always say this is the age of information, okay?
Right.
This is also the age of electronics and
where they get all their information from.
So it's nothing for children to go on Google or ask Siri about something and to pull up that information.
Right.
I don't have any children of my own, but my nieces and nephews are very much mine. I have 9 nieces and nephews, and they're very much mine.
Right.
I'd rather I be the one explaining to them what's going on versus someone else explaining, and they're not getting the facts.
Right. Or they're going to go on YouTube and they're going to see a graphic video of somebody getting gunned down.
And not know how to deal with it.
Right.
Not know
and
how
that's traumatic.
Of course. So, like, page 10 in my book, and I should say this, I have more support than I don't. There are 2 or 3 people. There'll always be that in any area. There'll always be 2 or 3 people who don't agree. But I have a lot of support.
On Instagram.
Yeah, I mean,
they're like hilarious.
And God bless them, because that's a lot of energy to waste. But
it is.
You know, the page 10 is the image of Tamir Rice being gunned down. And some people, it's too graphic for children, and I don't support this. And I always say to them, yeah, you know what? Racism is very graphic.
It is.
It's so graphic that
it should make you sick to your stomach.
A police officer gunned down a 12-year-old child playing with a toy gun, right? We know an activity that white boys are able to do freely and safely around the country.
Right.
Racism is very graphic. And then what are you more upset about? That this thing actually happened, or that I documented that it happened?
Right.
Because this is not a figment of my imagination, or, you know what I mean? Something I did. It's a false narrative. This is something you can literally go and Google right now and find.
I have 2 nephews. I have a 12-year-old nephew and I have a 5-year-old nephew. They live out of state, which is, a state that is not necessarily a racially balanced state. And that's a fear of mine. And I talk to my sister about this all the time, because I'm like, you have to be conscious. You're raising young Black boys in America.
Absolutely.
And it's not safe for them. So regardless of whoever it makes feel uncomfortable, as a parent, as a family member, to have to worry about your child just going out to do daily activities, walking to the bus stop, going to the mall, doing things that any other regular child is doing, but because of the color of their skin, people are intimidated by them.
Absolutely.
They are looked at as a threat. And you have to prepare them for that in this world, though.
It's sad that we have to do it, but I don't think I tell the people, like, I think that your anger is misplaced, that I don't think that it's it's not me you're mad at.
Right. Just like everybody was upset with Nike.
No, you're misplaced, right? So it's about, if we're not talking about, like, again, if we're not talking about these things now, when are we going to talk about them? Right? Racism, if we're trying to end it, and I say this all the time, my books are about also holding people accountable. And the only way you can hold people accountable is if you know who they are and you know their story. Right? So you need to know who Laura Ingraham is, that tells LeBron James to shut up and dribble. Right? You need to know who these people are. You need to hold them accountable.
Right. Definitely. And what I think also is that I love about your book, especially, let's talk a little bit about the curriculum.
Okay.
So in the curriculum, how many, like, just kind of give us a breakdown of it. How many parts, how many levels, what will children get out of this? What will have any teachers already started to implement or plan on implementing this year? Because I know it's fairly new.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
So my curriculum is like it's 50 pages of just glory. It's built by Tia Cole of the Cole Lab. Tia Cole develops curriculums for schools. So her and I had the opportunity to work together, and she just bodied this curriculum, right? And it's 6 weeks of learning in core areas of English, history, art, poetry, and there's a bonus with social justice. I think I'm missing and language arts.
But it was 5. Okay.
So each week has activities and also like a skill to learn. So like week 1 is about making inferences. And I started my curriculum at the 3rd and 4th grade level because a lot of the readings that I do, even though I do them in daycares, and I also even do them at some colleges.
Right.
But the 3rd and 4th grade level seems to be
reacted the most to it. Okay.
So I wanted to start there, but my overall goal is to create curriculum at every grade level.
Right.
So part of my curriculum that I love too is that, like I said, I want to validate the existence of Black lives. There are enough readings about white children and white people in general, and there are people to do that, but I don't feel like there's enough readings or enough books about Black heroes, especially at portraying them as heroes for Black and brown children to be able to connect and relate to. So my books are about bringing that culture in, and even in the curriculum, I remember always having to know the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. That was just part of school. You didn't even. I was born in Haiti, but I don't even fully know my country's song, but I know America's song. Well, how about Negro spirituals? How about the Black national anthem? Who knows that? I know adults who still don't know that.
I don't know it.
Well, it's in my curriculum, and we're gonna have to start knowing.
Right. Because it's a balance, though. It's just a balance. Even like last year, my daughter's only in pre-K, but last year she was in pre-K. So now one is in pre-K this year, one is in kindergarten. And we celebrated every holiday. Yeah. Every single holiday. And I think I must have missed a meeting or something because we didn't do anything for Black History Month.
We didn't.
And I cannot wait to the first PTA meetings. I could storm in there with my little agenda and tell them how we're gonna do something this year for Black History Month, because first of all, her school, there are so many Black and brown faces in her school, period. So it was kind of like a little, real, like, I felt disrespectful that it wasn't even incorporated, not even on Martin Luther King Day, nothing. We wasn't gonna have anything. So I can't wait to advocate for your curriculum to be in my daughter's school, because she's in a first year program. She's her school is expanding, so this year they're now kindergarten and 1st grade, and they're going to fill in the grades. So I can't wait till she gets to 3rd grade so I can be there advocating with your stuff.
I love
because I already teach them a lot about Black history and about culture, and they, even to the fact of just their natural hair. I tell them they're naturalistas. Yeah. So they love wearing their natural hair, and they're, they love themselves. They embrace themselves, and I think that it's important all across the board. Like you said, the representation, it matters. So I really commend you. I just want to thank you for coming onto the show today. But I commend you for this platform for everybody, because you're being a voice, not just, and you're not even a mom yet. But for parents, it's so important. And I think a lot of parents, we have those conversations at home amongst ourselves, but to actually physically have somebody that's out there that is doing the work, that's advocating for us, is advocating for our babies. I don't think that that you're a hero. Somebody's going to probably write a book about you one day.
Wow.
So,
Alicia.
no, honestly, this is something to be said and to be seen and showcased. And I just really appreciate all of your work, and speaking on behalf of everybody who supports you, because you do have a lot of supporters. We didn't even get into all the amazing things you've been doing all over the year. You've won some awards. You've been to all type of conferences. So just keep on doing and shining bright. And we see you and we hear and we support you, and that's it. So before we wrap up, I just want you to tell everybody where they can find you on social media so they can connect with you, and and just kind of say your endings piece.
So on social media, on Instagram, I'm joa.mcnalie. That's joa.MacNalie. On Facebook, it's the same, Joa McNalie. On Twitter, Joa the author. Also, you can go on my website, www.joamcnalie.com. Connect, leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys are thinking.
Yes. And advocate for this curriculum. If you have 3rd and 4th graders, talk to your teachers about it. Talk to the Board of Ed or the DOE, whoever it is that's in charge of your student's school. And this is nationwide, right?
Yes,
it's anywhere in the country, wherever you are. And if your kid is even going to be going into these grades in the following years, advocate for it.
Yes,
thank you again so much, my love, for coming. I appreciate you.